Welcome to the Lean Out Your Business podcast, a show dedicated to helping entrepreneurs accelerate business growth and simplify success. I'm your host, Krista Grasso, and I've been working with businesses for more than 2 decades to help them lean out and optimize what's working while eliminating anything that's not adding value. So if you are ready to get more time back in your day, more profit in your business, and to do business differently, growing and scaling on your terms, let's dive into today's episode. Hello, and welcome to another episode of the Lean Out Your Business podcast. Today, I am so excited to welcome 2 guests to the show. So we're changing up the format a little. We're going to have some fun tonight, but I have Lisa Jones and Lindsey Hammond with me, and we are going to be talking about all things relationships. Now, when we hear the word relationship, I think a lot of times we immediately think of romantic relationships. And those are certainly one of the kinds of relationships that we have, but we also have other types. And when we look at our business, we have relationships with our team. We have relationships with our clients. We have relationships with our community. We may even have a business partner or a collaborator or someone that we're working with that we have relationships with. So there's so many different types of relationships that influence us in business. And while we're running our business, we still need to maintain all of those incredible relationships outside of our business as well. So I'm so excited for today's episode because today's guests are experts at all of the facets of relationships. And as business partners, as well as relationship experts and coaches, they're really going to help us look at how we can have really healthy relationships as we're continuing to grow and scale out our businesses. So Lisa, Lindsey, welcome. I'm so excited that you are here today.
Oh, thank you so much for having us, Krista. It's our pleasure to be here.
We're thrilled. Thank you.
Amazing. So the first question I want to dive into is we covered like so many different types of relationships, of which there are so many, but I'm sure there's got to be some common things regardless of the type of relationship that can commonly cause breakdowns or cause challenges or cause issues in that relationship. So are there any common things that you see that we want to be considering where relationships sometimes fall down or fall apart?
Mm-hmm. You want to take this?
No, go ahead.
I love that question. And what we often think of right away is the C word, right? Communication. But what actually happens is it's either that we're overly communicating something to our partners and it's not being heard, or we're doing the under the rug swiping, whether it's a business partner or, your love relationship, and not talking about it, avoiding the conversation. So, whether it's, that you've gotten in a fight or your feelings have been hurt about something, or, for love relationships, if it's something about like, the household tasks or spending too much time with the in-laws family or not enough sex, whatever it is, often it's that we're not communicating about it. Yeah. And that's kind of like where things start.
Yeah, less about the topic or the issue and more about the communication and whether it's happening, and if it is happening, how it's being done.
Yeah, it's so interesting because I've had, I've been married for 17 years. We've been together for 21, right? There's always ups and downs throughout the entire journey. But when I find most of the times that we've ever had challenges in the past, it has always been because of communication. And the irony is that the reason why we frequently weren't communicating is because of the fear around how the conversation was going to go. Yeah. And in the end, the conversation itself was fine. All the stress, all the worry, all the stuff we made up in our heads, none of it was really real. We just needed to talk about the darn thing.
Yeah, it's so true, Krista. And when we hold on to those things and we don't communicate about them, that starts to affect everything else in our life because it's so much emotional energy to be holding that, right?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. And we believe, we believe this idea that conflict or, challenging and hard conversations always lead to disconnection. And so we're trying to shift the thinking around that and helping people to understand that you can actually have connection from conflict. It's not whether or not you're arguing or fighting or having conflict in any of your relationships. It's how you're going about doing it. So most of us haven't been taught, right? Most of us haven't been taught how to do that. And so we avoid it because it's scary or because we've, failed at it in the past.
Yeah, absolutely. And so when we take that into the business environment and we think when it comes to our team, because I think conflict in team is something that people struggle with so much. People don't feel comfortable giving feedback or constructive criticism or having a conflict and really calling someone out on something or having that difficult conversation. So how do you recommend for a business owner that maybe isn't loving that conflict or the difficult conversation ahead, how to handle that?
Yeah, great question. I actually spoke with a client today and they were having some hard conversations coming up with some of their team at work. And it was that exact question, like, how do I do this? Am I approaching this the right way? And ultimately, her question was, should I even have the conversation? And the answer to that is always yes. Like, it's so much better to choose discomfort for that short period of time. So it's not going to be comfortable. Hard conversations aren't comfortable. And so accepting that being uncomfortable is okay, right? And it's so much better to accept that discomfort than to be resentful and hold it for like the long term, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think that's such a good point. Like, you're not going to like it. It's not going to feel fun and juicy and exciting. But to your point, Krista, like the feeling that you have after you finally said it and had the conversation, how much better you feel. And I think that, when we have conflict at work, we often feel like if you're the one who's getting the feedback, you often feel like you're getting attacked and you may feel like there's a risk of your job. And, when that fear comes into the conversation, it's almost impossible to hear what the other person is saying. And so if you can get out of the desire to like prove and defend your point of view and actually listen to the person giving the feedback and ask questions and get curious about what they mean, then the conversation can get somewhere. But if you're hearing that feedback as like, you're attacking me, you think I'm bad and wrong and awful and a bad member of the team, then all I'm going to do is tell you all the reasons why I'm great and you should keep me and why I'm valuable, as opposed to be able to like receive that feedback.
Yeah.
Yeah. And so it's interesting. That's such great advice. And let's talk about the timing of feedback, because I see two camps on this, and I'm super curious to your opinion on this or your thoughts on this. Is some people are like, put regular feedback reviews on the calendar, and so then people know that it's coming. You've got protected space to be able to talk about it. And I do love that idea. I think that makes sense, right? New employee, 30, 60, 90, you put those feedback cycles on, great, everything. But what about when something happens that day? Do you wait for the feedback cycle or do you share that feedback right away?
I think it's both. So having those things on the calendar is so important to make sure they're actually happening. But it's so important to set up at the beginning of any relationship what feedback looks like in that relationship. So from a work standpoint, I would be telling my team, there's feedback every day. Every day that we're together, there's feedback. When I say like, hey, you did a great job on that, you need to take that as feedback. It's not just me throwing a comment out there, right? It's actually real feedback in the moment. And the problem with waiting the 30 days, 60 days or whatever is it's not going to feel as relevant anymore. And our memories fail us. There's so many things, right? And so in the moment, by bringing up, this is what happened, and definitely sticking to the facts, this is what happened, and this was the outcome or the consequence of it, that gives the person the opportunity to see it right then and there. Like, okay, I see what happened, and you can together work to figure out like, how are we going to change it, right?
Yeah, so good. And I agree with that approach fully, because I do find there's nothing worse. It's been like 3 weeks and someone mentioned some things to you and it's like, was that big a deal? Why didn't you say something to me 3 weeks ago?
Right. Yeah.
The other rule we have is notice so say you're the one who's, been triggered. I know coachy language, been triggered by something that your colleague or someone that you're working on your team has done. check in with yourself as well, right? So this is a great time to have the self-awareness around like, what is it that is really bothering me? And we often say, sleep on it, right? So it would be like, if you're still kind of experiencing what we'd call like a stress response or frustration or resentment towards the person, that's not the time to have the conversation. So I echo what Lindsay said, like, don't wait the 3 months, but if you're still like really feeling big feelings about it, I would say sleep on it, take some notes about it, sleep on it, and then wake up with a fresh mind and then say, hey, there's nothing better than going and grabbing the person a coffee or, organizing a chat with them and then just sort of saying, hey, something that happened yesterday just wasn't sitting right with me. Do you have 5? Yeah. To sit down and chat. So
such a good point.
Yeah.
And the other thing that can happen, at least when you do that, is you might wake up and be like, what was wrong with me yesterday? That is not a big deal.
Yeah. Right? I hadn't slept or I was hungry. I was mad at my partner at home and that affected how I showed up at work. So yeah, there's just always so many variables.
Yeah.
Yeah, such great feedback. I really, really love that approach. Now, one thing I wanted to dive in, I saw this on your website, and I really love this line where you say, change your relationships, change your life. And I think that's such a powerful statement. And so, how do you feel our relationships actually impact our success in business? Like, I know relationships is so broad and covers so many different facets of our life, but how does that ultimately influence how we show up in business and the results that we get?
I think it hugely impacts how we show up and the results we get. The other thing we say on our website, I love that you went to our website. Thanks, Krista. The other thing we say on our website is that we work with people in all their relationships. And that includes not just their love relationship and not just, their extended family, their colleagues, their clients, but their relationship with themselves too. And so that relationship with yourself as the starting point is like such a huge impact on your life, your business, everything, right?
Yeah. If you're feeling confident and secure and knowing the value that you're bringing into your work and the relationships that you have at work, then you can receive, going back to the feedback, you can receive that knowing that that person's trying to help you get better. If you don't feel self-confident and you haven't done the work on yourself, then you're going to receive that and then be like, well, they don't like me or they think I'm awful, or you're going to go down like that spiral of negativity. And so, yeah, if you haven't worked on yourself and figured out how to love and respect, honor, and value yourself, it's actually impossible for you to receive that from your colleagues and from the people that you work with.
Yeah. 100%. And when you do those things that Lisa's just talked about, you also then have the ability to create boundaries, create your own little internal playbook on, what you do and don't accept in life and in business, and then put that into action, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Yeah, that's so important because I think, I love I love my systems. I love my strategies. The fact that you just said the word playbook makes me so incredibly happy. But the reality is I could give somebody the best systems, the best strategies, the best everything, but you can only grow as far in your business as you can grow as the leader of your business. And more often than not, if you're not getting the traction you want, a lot of times I find it's more of an inner journey, as frustrating as that can be for people, because they're like, can't you just give me the system? And it's like, I absolutely can. And you're not ready for it.
Yes. Yeah.
It's so true. And we actually get a lot of couples who come to us thinking that, the problem is just in their relationship with each other. And then of course, when we dive deeper, it's always that individual relationship and how they're not, loving or valuing themselves and, or just, worked on themselves and how to express and articulate their voice. And so that's what we do. Same thing for our clients that are working with colleagues and working to try and give feedback to their bosses as well as to the people on their team. It's the same. It's all the same concept, really.
Yeah.
Right? It's relationship with self first.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Yes, I love that. And that's part of why I love the work that you do, that it does span all of those different facets, because there's nothing that we do that does not include a relationship.
Yes.
Nothing. So one thing that I do want to talk about in the lens of business, right? As we're growing businesses, as we're scaling businesses, there's different seasons. And sometimes our personal lives really need to take a focus, but there's just simply periods in our business where our business is front and center. It is kind of what we live, eat, and breathe. Like it's just big, important period for us in the business. And so how do we maintain the focus that our business needs without losing ourselves or losing our focus on the other important relationships in our life, like our spouse or our friends or our family?
Such a good question.
Mm-hmm. What do you do during tax season with Trev?
Yeah, I think, well, first, the biggest thing I think is taking a step back and looking at the big picture of your life and business. So when you're in the moment, in one of those seasons, like you said, everything can feel so overwhelming and so big, and you can feel like, I can't do it all. But when you take a step back and you see big picture, balance can exist over a longer period of time and not necessarily in a day. So maybe your day was all work. Maybe tomorrow your day is all work, but over a time period of a week, maybe home, your relationship with your spouse, and work is more balanced. You just needed those 2 days to be full work, right? So when you're able to step back and see that big picture, I think you give yourself, or you're able to give yourself a little bit more grace on like, I am showing up. It's just over a longer period of time. That being said, sometimes like tax season or like other, seasons of life and business, it can feel like it's not just a couple days. It's not just a couple weeks. It's like months and months. And in those seasons, I think this is going to go back to the same word, and I'm sorry, but the biggest thing is communication. So it's going to your spouse and your partner and saying like, this is what I need in this time. And what do you need from me so that I can still show up for you, knowing that I have this other big thing drawing all my focus and attention?
Yeah, I think that to build on that, I think that we just, whether it's a friendship or a love relationship, we want to know that we're a priority, right? And that we're not fighting against that other relationship work, that we can work with that relationship. And so, yeah, I think it's about like designing that with your partner or with your bestie or with your parents or kids. And like you said, saying this is going to get busy, but also having a plan, which you'll love, Krista. So it's like saying, it's understanding that maybe in a normal season, organically, we just have dinner together and then we like Netflix and chill, or we go for a run or whatever it is that you do. And in this season, it's going to have to be planned because that time is more precious. And so instead of it being more about quantity, it becomes about quality, intentional time that you've planned with that person. Imagine, your spouse, imagine dating your spouse again during that crazy time. Imagine saying like, we're going to have like Thursday night date night for this next 3 months when I'm crazy busy at work. And I'm going to leave my work phone and computer out of it. I'm going to give you my undivided attention. And we're just going to be together, having quality time. Yeah. And you can design that at the beginning and you can commit to it and you can show how committed you are by showing up for that without the devices and giving that undivided attention. It's the best way to make that other person feel loved during that time.
Such a gift.
Yeah.
I feel like you just described my schedule. Literally, Thursday nights is my night. It's my undivided time night. And the funny thing is, right, my husband and I both realized this summer that we love pickleball. And we started going and playing pickleball, and we would go almost every single night. It was how I would transition from my work day to kind of like my non-work time. And then I signed a really huge client. And on top of that, I decided to form a partnership and launch a new business, which for those of you listening, you'll hear all about that later. And so all of a sudden, my schedule went from pretty spacious, very intentionally, to all of a sudden pretty busy intentionally, but still a pretty big shift. And so we looked at it, and he is off playing pickleball right now while we're recording because he still goes every day. But I clear my calendar, and Thursday night is pickleball night or when it rains, we will watch Netflix or we'll hang out or we'll spend quality time together. So that had to be planned and scheduled because it was much more organic before. It was like, hey, I'm done for the day. You want to go play pickleball? Now it's like Thursday at 4:00. I'm done for the day and he's usually already there and I will come meet you at the pickleball court.
It's so great and so important. Is it working for you?
It is. Yeah, it's great. I mean, don't get me wrong. I would love to sometimes be off playing pickleball with him when he's there every day, but it's really nice that we have that protected time once a week that we're both really good about fiercely protecting and not scheduling over.
It's awesome.
I love it. Okay, so I want to talk about both of you as business partners because there's so much advice out there. Never have a business partner. You should definitely have a business partner, right? And I think you've obviously been able to make this work and make this work really well. And so, what do you think goes into a successful business partnership relationship? And what are some of the things to really make sure that you're assessing if that's something that you're considering?
Great question. So we also did all the Google research and found out what a disaster it could be.
We interviewed so many people
to go into business with not just like somebody, but a very like we're best friends. We're we've raised our kids together. Our families are close, and so we interviewed people. We knew a bunch of other people that had gone into business together, and we took them out for coffee or dinner and asked them all the things. And we kind of came up with our own list of like absolutely everything that could go wrong, like what might not work about this. And we sort of went through and answered every single one, like how would we handle it? What we do? What is the worst case scenario? Can we live with that worst case scenario? How will we talk about it if we're getting to that worst case scenario? And kind of went through like absolutely everything that could go wrong. So and some of and we've used that. So we created our own playbook for it of how we were going to give and receive feedback to each other. And we've had to definitely pull it out a few times and sort of say, that thing we designed at the beginning of our business, like I want to talk about this. And again, just like all of you listening who don't like conflict, like we're no different. Just because we're experts at teaching other people how to do it, it doesn't mean that we like doing it, right? So I think it's you start as you mean to go on, right? And set it up from the beginning.
Yeah. And I think, like Lisa said, we were best friends first, and we've been friends for almost 20 years. That might be a slight round up, but almost 20 years. And I think it's different going into business with a business partner who is purely just a business partner than it is with someone who is a friend or a family member. And when it is a friend or a family member, I think the most important thing to set out before you go into business together is what is our priority? Because for us, it was our friendship. And so our non-negotiable was if at any point our business gets between our friendship, then we call it. And so I think it's knowing like what is your non-negotiable.
Yeah, and you're right. That would be very different from two people coming together that didn't have the history. Yeah. Then it would be a different set of questions, equally important.
Important, and still the same advice in the terms of like set it up as you mean to go on. Talk about what feedback's going to look like, how you're going to give it, how you're going to receive it. Talk about what communication's going to look like.
And hire experts. Like we've hired coaches and experts all along the way so that, we can keep making sure that we're staying true to our purpose and our vision as a business, because that can get lost in the shuffle.
Yes.
Such great advice. And now I want to talk about partnerships of a different type also, because I think it's one thing when you are actual business partners who co-own and co-found a business together. But what about the partnership of you bringing on a right-hand person in your business, what I call your soul, your strategy and operations leader, right? And so they are technically an employee. They are not a partner in that sense, but it's really much more of a working partnership because you have to work collaboratively to both be able to make sure that you're bringing that vision to life. So any tips on that kind of relationship or how to handle finding the right person and keeping that a healthy relationship?
I feel like you should answer this question. You have nailed this in your business. But no, that is a really good question. I think one of many things is figuring out like, what are my values? What's important to me? And when you're hiring someone who has those same values, or at a minimum understands, respects, and accepts the importance of your values.
Yeah, that's good. Yeah, I think having those, aligned values, setting up a feedback loop, and those meetings from the very beginning as well, I think is important.
Not just top down either, but also bottom up feedback.
Yeah. So how do you want to receive feedback? Even just having that conversation. There's a lot of situations where it's like all of a sudden you're like publicly shouting out on your Instagram like how much you love this person on your team, and they're mortified, but they don't tell you. Right? So that they actually want to receive feedback in private, right? So even something as little as that is really important to design as you go.
Okay, I feel like we could talk for 4 hours about all of the things team and relationship dynamic, but I want to give you the opportunity to tell everyone about your work and what you do. So tell them about your business, tell them how you work with people and where they can go to find more about you and connect with you.
Awesome.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you.
So tell them about our exciting project that we have going on right now.
So our newest, biggest thing is we will be launching a course shortly called Thrive Together. And this is going to be a course that is really accessible and attainable for all people who are working on their love relationship. So this one is specifically for people working on their love relationship. And beyond that, though, Krista, we work with people on their relationship with themselves, like we mentioned, their love relationship, and then all their relationships. So it can mean colleagues, clients, extended family, in-laws, literally any relationship. And we work one-on-one. We work also with a couple, so 2-on-1. And then we have our online programs. From a business and corporate standpoint, we've done a lot of corporate presentations, lunch and learns for companies that want their employees to learn a little more about what we've talked about here today, giving and receiving feedback. Also about taming their inner critic. Basically anything relationship related, we've presented on it. So we also have that in our back pockets. But you can find us on our website, relationships, the letter R, everything.com. And you can book in with us for a free call at any time. So we offer that to everyone at the start so that you can get a feel for, what is it like to work with a coach, and are we aligned? Would we work together?
And can we help?
Yeah. Can we even help?
Yeah. Absolutely. And I was telling you this before we hit record, but their Instagram content is phenomenal. So tell them where to find you on Instagram, because if you are curious about anything relationship related, you should really follow them on Instagram.
Thank you. Yeah, all the social media. We're on
just
all
under
of it.
The relationship coaches.
Yeah. So our handle's at the relationship coaches.
All right. So there's one thing that I'm dying to know. This is the question I ask everybody, and I can't wait to hear what you have to share. And that is, how in your business do you work smarter, not harder, and keep things lean?
Ooh, good one. You take it, Lynn.
Okay. So I would say that this is not our strongest suit, Krista. But one way is, for all those people listening, hire Krista, and she didn't pay us to say that. But that is certainly one way, is to hire experts and coaches who can help you do exactly that. What we have learned to do, I would say, and it's taken time, is to really focus on what our kind of area, zone of genius is. So what are we there to do? What do we love doing? And spending our time on that, and then hiring out the rest so that we're really doing the things that we love and that we're best at, and hiring someone else who's better at the things we're not the best at. So we have a team of assistants who help us with a lot of those things, and that has made all the difference for sure.
Yes, I am all about building out the team around you so you can stay focused in your zone of genius. I love that so much. So before we round things out here, I do have one final question for you. And that is, do you have any final tips on how to improve your relationships in order to improve your business and improve your life?
Oh, I love that question. Okay, I'm going to share with you a tool that we talk about a lot with our clients that is small but life-changing. Because we're our own worst critics, and usually the biggest fight that we're having is not actually with other people, but with ourselves. And so this is a great way to help you with that nasty little inner critic that you've got. Ask yourself the question, whatever's going on with that relationship or whatever struggle you're in, ask yourself the simple question of like, what is in my control and what is out of my control? And write it, do a T-chart, write it on the top of the page. What's in my control? Well, of course, your thoughts, right? So your thoughts, your attitude, for the most part, how you spend your time. And, write a detailed list of what those thoughts are and what your attitude right now is about said topic and, what you're doing with your time. And then on the other side, figure out what's out of your control, because you'd be amazed, Krista, at how much time we spend and emotional energy we waste on the things that are out of our control. Mm-hmm. And I would say the number one in a work environment is often other people's opinions of us. Mm. What are they thinking? What does my boss think? What does my colleague think? What do they think of my work, of who I am, of how I show up? And that is wasted energy, and it is out of your control. So once you recognize that and you spend that time over in the places that are in your control, you're going to feel like you're back in the driver's seat of your life again.
Oh, such a great tool. I love simple tools and strategies. Fantastic. All right, Lisa Lindsey, thank you so much for being here. So much value in this episode. I so appreciate you being on the show. I hope all of you listening got as much value out of this as I did. I will see you again next week. Thanks so much for tuning in to this week's episode. If you have not yet taken our scalability assessment, I invite you to head to leanoutmethod.com/assessment and take our interactive assessment that's going to help you look at how simple, how sustainable, and how scalable your business currently is. It includes personalized recommendations of where to focus next to get your time back, to increase your impact, increase your profits, and ultimately step into your rich, fulfilled life. And finally, we'd love to see you inside our signature program, Simplify to Scale. You can head to leanoutmethod.com/ops to find all of the details on how we can help you up-level your operations and get out of the day-to-day of your business.